There comes a moment when the world doesn't end in fire, but in forgetfulness, not with a trumpet blast, but with a sigh. You wake up and everything looks the same. The sun still rises, the streets still hum with life, laughter echoes, doors open, families eat dinner. But something is missing, something holy has withdrawn, and you didn't even notice. That's how it happens. Not all at once, but with small compromises, slow distractions, the erosion of awe. The ticking of the clock becomes background noise. You don't hear it anymore, but it's still ticking. Faster now. The heartbeat of prophecy is fading. You think you have time. You think warning looks like lightning in the sky. But sometimes warning looks like comfort, a life too peaceful to question, a culture too loud to hear. And then it's night. Not a sudden night, but one that crept in slowly, while you were entertained, while you were scrolling, while your spirit was numb. It's not the end that startles you, it's the realization that it already came, and you slept through it. The Spirit doesn't always leave with a shout. Sometimes he departs in silence, and those who are distracted don't even feel the absence. By the time you see the signs, it's already too late. Now ask yourself, if this shook you, and still you won't subscribe, what are you running from? Truth isn't loud anymore. It whispers, it waits, and then it walks away. Subscribers stand in the light. If you won't, then go to the comments and write down why you still hide in the shadows. You are not irrelevant. You are not too late. You are not too lost. That voice in your head, the one that tells you your best days are behind you, that your prayers were too small, your failures too great, your silence too long. It lies. You were not called to fade quietly into the noise. You were not redeemed to retire. You are a sentinel, a seer, a keeper of the flame. When others were chasing comfort, you were being carved by pain, not as punishment, but as preparation. Every delay was not denial. Every heartbreak was a sharpening. Every unanswered prayer was oil added to your lamp. Because now is the hour. You weren't born for peace. You were born for preparedness. You weren't called to blend in. You were summoned to stand. And I know, it feels like your voice doesn't carry, like no one's listening, like you've been buried under years of silence, regret, distractions. But I tell you, a trumpet in the wilderness is still a trumpet, and heaven hears it. You are not forgotten. You are forged, chosen, hidden, yes, but not without purpose. Because the ones he hides, he intends to reveal at the appointed time. And this is that time. You were not meant to watch history. You were meant to shape it. You are the gatekeeper your bloodline prayed for, the intercessor hell hoped would stay asleep, the voice that shakes generations, even if they pretend not to hear. You wonder why you've felt the weight so long. It's because the mantle has always been there, heavy, holy, waiting for your yes. So rise, take up your post, sharpen your sword, set your face like flint, because the moment demands more than convenience. It demands consecration and courage. You are not disqualified, you are dangerous when you finally believe who you are. You are called to rise, and if you hear this and still refuse to subscribe, then go to the comments and tell us why you keep your sword sheathed in silence. There is a danger more lethal than persecution. It is comfort, the illusion of safety. The moment when the world says, peace, peace, just before the walls collapse and the fire breaks through the windows. You thought you had time. You thought you could drift a little longer. But while you were scrolling, the hourglass emptied. Entertainment became anesthesia. You weren't watching videos. You were being lulled to sleep. And while your eyes were open, your spirit was dozing in the pew. Hands lifted in worship, but no oil in your lamp. Scripture quoted but not obeyed. Convictions posted online, but quietly negotiated behind closed doors. This is how the enemy wins, not with horns and fire, but with politeness. A gentle voice that says, don't be too radical. Don't offend them. God understands. And so we welcome demons clothed in manners. We tolerate rebellion because it's dressed in relevance. We keep false teachers close because they speak with smoothness. And all the while, heaven is grieved, angels are silenced, and hell rejoices over a generation that confuses silence for love. We are sleepwalking toward judgment, awake in the flesh, asleep in the spirit. And the scariest part? We've learned to blend in, so well that even heaven has to squint to recognize us. No salt, no light, just camouflage. You look like the culture. You sound like the crowd. You sing louder in church but live quieter in truth. There's no war cry in your voice anymore, no fire in your bones, because compromise crept in dressed as wisdom, and distraction disguised itself as peace. But hear me. The trumpet is sounding. Not from a mountaintop, but from the margins. Not from the famous, but from the faithful. And if you still refuse to hear, if you still won't awaken, if you still won't subscribe to what your soul is begging you to face, then go to the comments and tell us, what's your excuse for ignoring the trumpet blast? You think you've missed it, that your moment has passed, that you're too tired, too old, too flawed to be used now. But the kingdom doesn't move on your clock. It moves on surrender. It moves on fire. It moves on availability, not youth. Spiritual maturity isn't the absence of struggle. It's the sharpening of authority. The weight of glory pressing you until what's useless breaks off, and what's eternal breaks through. Moses wasn't sent until he was 80, when Pharaoh was in full power, when Egypt seemed unshakable, when everyone else had written him off. That's when the fire called his name, not when he was strong, but when he was surrendered. Anna prophesied at the temple not in her 20s, but after decades of hiddenness. Her name wasn't on billboards, no platforms, no brand deals, just oil in her lamp and her eyes on the Messiah. Paul didn't write his most powerful letters from a stage, but from prison, chained, forgotten by men, yet burning with revelation. This is not your decline. This is your divine deployment. God didn't preserve you to pamper you. He preserved you to position you. But you must stop measuring power by applause. Stop equating calling with clout. There are voices with millions of followers who carry no weight in the spirit. And there are quiet ones, hidden ones, who shake principalities when they whisper a prayer. You don't need a microphone, you need fire. You don't need approval, you need authority. You're not here to entertain, you're here to intervene. This generation doesn't need more influencers. It needs intercessors, gatekeepers, burden bearers, prophets who will cry out even if no one claps. And if you're hearing this now, it's because heaven still sees the flame in you, even if it's just a flicker, even if your altar's covered in ash. The wind of God can still reignite it, but you must choose comfort or conviction, convenience or calling, the crowd or the cross, because you can't walk in both. You can't carry fire and stay casual. You can't pray for revival and remain asleep. You've been anointed for something deeper, something heavier, and you know it, you've felt it in the middle of the night when no one's watching, in the pit of your gut when you see injustice and feel powerless, in the stillness when the Spirit won't let you settle. That's your mantle speaking. That's your assignment groaning. That's your legacy begging not to be buried. So I'll ask plainly, why are you hiding what heaven anointed? Why do you silence what was meant to roar? If you're ready to carry it, if you're ready to say yes, then subscribe. Not just to a channel, but to a charge, to a commission, to a consecration. And if you still refuse, then don't vanish quietly. Go to the comments and confess. Why bury your mantle? There comes a moment, not when you're pushed out, but when you are called out. A holy discomfort begins to stir. You can't explain it. The room feels louder. The jokes fall flat. The conversations drain you. It's not pride, it's not bitterness, it's consecration. You weren't called to blend in. You were called to burn. And fire doesn't fit everywhere. Oil doesn't flow in polluted places. You feel the tension. That subtle war between staying connected and staying clean. Let me tell you plainly, you weren't called to be liked. You were called to be set apart. There is nothing carnal about guarding your spirit. Let your no be sacred. Let your silence be strategic. Not everyone deserves access to your anointing. Not every invitation is an assignment. Not every good thing is a God thing. The same Jesus who embraced the crowds also withdrew from them. He taught thousands, but he walked closely with 12, and even from the 12, he took only 3 up the mountain. Smaller circles, sharper clarity, deeper consecration. Don't apologize for needing less noise. Don't feel guilty for unfollowing voices that clutter your spirit. Don't explain why your weekends look different, why your posts have shifted, why your presence feels distant to the carnal. You're not angry. You're not antisocial. You're not judging. You're guarding the oil. The cost is rising. Distraction has never been louder, and the oil has never been rarer. So protect it. Protect your prayer life like it's oxygen, because it is. Protect your worship like it's warfare, because it is. Protect your time like it's sacred ground, because it is. This is not isolation, it's insulation. It's not rejection, it's obedience. And yes, it will sting. Some will misread you, some will mock the shift, some will call it pride. But don't confuse their confusion with your calling. They didn't hear what you heard. They didn't see what heaven showed you. They weren't awake that night when God whispered, "Come away." And you have nothing to prove. You weren't called to be loud. You were called to be light. You weren't called to impress. You were called to intercede. So let them talk. Let them wonder. Let them question. You just obey. You just keep your altar lit. You just keep your garments white. You just keep your ears tuned to the voice of the one who called you. There's a remnant rising, and you feel it. That tug to unplug from the noise, to lean into purity, to fast when no one else is, to pray when no one's watching, to weep for a generation that mocks what's holy. You've been marked. That's why the old wineskin doesn't fit anymore. That's why their language feels foreign. That's why the party lost its flavor. You're not broken. You're being rebuilt. You're not lonely. You're being set apart. Because the ones who will carry the next move of God must first be willing to carry the weight of silence, the burden of clarity, the ache of separation. So I'll ask you plainly, what are you still clinging to that He's called you to leave behind? Who are you still appeasing that heaven never assigned you to? If you feel the tension, the pull, the call to come higher, then subscribe. Not for content, but for confirmation. A witness in your spirit that says, yes, this is what I've been feeling. This is what God's been whispering. And if you still resist, if you still hesitate, then don't disappear quietly. Go to the comments and tell us, what's stopping you from choosing obedience over approval? They won't remember your name. And that's not failure, that's faithfulness. Legacy isn't in headlines, it's in heaven's ledger, in the tears you cried that watered someone else's breakthrough, in the prayers you whispered when no one responded, in the battles you fought in secret so the next generation wouldn't have to. You think your yes is small, but it's echoing, across time, across bloodlines, across eternities, because heaven counts differently. While you see a moment, heaven sees momentum. While you see a quiet yes, heaven sees a war won. You don't know the chain reaction your obedience will trigger. You don't see the grandchild of the woman you prayed for, the missionary your tithe sent, the revival birthed in your fasting, the healing released because you said no to comfort. You think this is about you, but you're just a link in the chain, a runner with the torch, and how you carry it, how you guard it, will decide what the next runner receives. This is about inheritance, not financial, spiritual, not about what they drive, but what drives them, not what they'll post, but what they'll carry. You think your yes is too late, but in the kingdom, delay doesn't disqualify. God redeems time when you redeem obedience, and if you'll say yes now, truly, yes, not convenient yes, but costly yes, it will outlive you. Because every altar you build today will become a map for someone tomorrow. Every time you intercede instead of scrolling, every time you fast instead of indulging, every time you forgive when it hurts, every time you say, "Here I am, send me," you're carving legacy into eternity, and maybe you won't see the harvest, but you're planting trees your great-grandchildren will rest beneath. Maybe you'll never preach on a stage, but you'll disciple a generation in your living room. Maybe your name will fade on earth, but ring out in heaven with honor, because the reward is not recognition. It's righteousness. It's not claps. It's crowns. And when your race is run, when your lamp is empty, and your breath is gone, will you be able to say, I kept the flame, I passed the torch, I finished my course? Or will your silence echo louder than your sermons? Will your comfort speak louder than your calling? You've been entrusted with fire, and fire unattended becomes ash, but fire stewarded becomes legacy. So choose, now, let the flame die with you, or set the next generation ablaze. Subscribe if you're ready to pass the torch. Subscribe if your yes is not just for you, but for your children, for your city, for souls you'll never meet this side of heaven. And if not, if your flame ends with you, then go to the comments and tell us why you'd let the light go dark. You are not fading. You are becoming flame. You were not saved to be silent. You were not called to coast. You were not anointed for apathy. You were forged in fire, born in a battlefield, commissioned for war. This is not the hour to retreat. This is not the hour to blend in. This is not the hour to sit down. The alarms are sounding. The darkness thickens, and heaven is looking for those who will not flinch. Don't walk quietly to your finish line. Don't tiptoe into eternity. Roar until your final breath. Pray until the heavens shake. Worship until walls collapse. Fast until flesh breaks. Stand until the winds of hell break against you and move around you. Let your prayers punch holes in the sky. Let your groan rattle foundations. Let your obedience provoke demons. Let your life remind hell that heaven never stopped raising warriors. You are not a bystander. You are a watchman. You are a gatekeeper. You are a trumpet in the fog. And the fog is thick now. Delusion is dressed in virtue. Deception wears the mask of compassion. Cowardice preaches from pulpits, and compromise is called strategy. But you see it, you feel it, and you must not be silent. When the world labels your conviction intolerance, stand anyway. When they call your fire fanaticism, burn anyway. When they mock your fasting, your groaning, your urgency, weep anyway. Because heaven is recruiting remnant soldiers, not celebrities, not spectators, soldiers, who pray when no one listens, who stay when everyone leaves, who still weep over what culture now celebrates. And here is the warning. If you see these three signs, compromise in the camp, pulpits without presence, casual hearts in catastrophic times, and you feel nothing, it's already too late. If you can scroll past sin and not flinch, if you can see blood in the streets and not cry out, if you can hear the trumpet and keep sleeping, you are no longer distracted. You are deceived. But if you still feel the sting, if the tears still come, if the groan still rises in your gut, there's hope, because the fire is still alive. Even if it's dim, even if it's flickering, it's still holy. So rise. Pick up your sword. Put on the garments of war. Stand watch in the midnight hour. Cover your family in intercession. Tear down altars of passivity. Rebuild the ruins of devotion. And do it now, not tomorrow, not when it's convenient, not when you feel qualified. Now. Because delay is disobedience in disguise. Because every moment you wait, hell advances unchallenged. And if you still feel the fire, subscribe, not for content, but for alignment, for connection to a sound that matches the roar in your spirit. But if you don't, if you've gone numb, if the call no longer stirs you, then go to the comments and lament your silence while there's still time to speak. Because this isn't just a warning. This is a war cry. This is the sound of walls shaking. This is the echo of Elijah, the groan of Jeremiah, the fire of John crying from the wilderness. Make straight the way of the Lord. This is not a broadcast. It's a blast from the trumpet. And this is Pope Leo XIV unveiled. And we don't whisper warnings. We blow the trumpet.